science behind sci-fi. So basically, we'll have everybody introduce themselves. I've got a couple questions, kind of get the discussion going. If you guys have any questions, any specifics you want to ask about, is this really going to happen? Are we really going to get an alien apocalypse, an AI apocalypse, anything of that sort? So we'll go ahead and start down there with Bishop.
I'm Bishop O'Connell. I'm author of the American Fairy Tale series and the award-winning Two-Gun Witch, which I'm going to have put on my tab. Goddamn right I am. And in my day job, I do a lot of consulting work with nuclear power plants and generation and production, and also do computer programming, DBA work, things like that.
I'm Brandon Whitworth. I'm a rocket scientist. You can tell because I have a lab coat on. I actually wear it. No, I don't wear it to work. Actually, I should wear it to work. Anyway, my focus right now is mainly on the new liquid propellants that all the big vehicles are using, liquid oxygen, liquid methane. They will mix together and they will form a high explosive. Fun times.
Put together by the investigator.
Or for-profit company.
I am the Pan Librarian Wizard Alexander Gideon. My writing can best be summed up by the phrase, and many people died. In terms of sci-fi, I have the Wayfaring Strangers series, which is my cosmic, supernatural science fiction about what it's like to actually have a conversation with death and the formation of an accidental pantheon, because nothing in the universe happens for a reason, it just does. In terms of anything I do scientific, the most knowledge I have got is I am an optician, so I know how to bend the hell out of some light.
So my name is Charlie Kaufman. I've got a background in environmental science, GIS computer mapping, and emergency management. In the sci-fi realm, I like to take a lot of the skills that I've learned in the real world and apply them to mapping kaiju attacks, zombie outbreak models, and Sharknado impact events. And
You're doing God's work.
Yeah. so like to bring that to the table and talk about fun science things.
My name is Jim Craig. I am trained as a physicist who ran a planetarium for nearly 20 years. I now do astrophotography, build a lot of things. I am what they now are referring to as a maker. I like to make things, 3D printing, electronic kits, that sort of thing. And as I said earlier, I started as an art major who got a degree in physics, so I also designed t-shirts and fun stuff, which you can find. That's shameless self-promotion, the most sincere kind.
Over here.
My name is Jenn Whitworth. I am a NASA rocket and scientist from Huntsville. Yes, I do have to live with him. For almost 25 years now, amazingly enough. I actually live sci-fi. I work the Artemis program and the Lunar Gateway. So my job is specific, corralling the cats involved with the science experiments. And we're going to launch them on the gateway, send it out to the moon. It's going to be operated by machine learning, somewhat AI adjacent. And then a year later, we're going to send people out there, and people are going to go into the Lunar Gateway for the first time, because that's never gone horribly wrong in a movie, ever. So, first question. Technology has really exploded, and it is continuing to explode. And the difference between sci-fi...
Sometimes literally.
Sometimes literally, and sometimes on purpose, and sometimes not.
Sometimes they implode.
So where is the line between science fiction and science fact, do you think, today?
Who are you starting that with? Well, I think there is always going to be some line, partially because of good share, and there is going to be a panel on this. Can that even happen? Some things work really well in science fiction, and they are just not possible. You know, and a lot of people say, well, it's an engineering thing. No, there are physical reasons that some things just simply won't work. So I do think that there's going to always be a line. But, you know, as probably the oldest person on the panel, arguably the oldest person on the panel, I have seen technology change rapidly in my lifetime. I was born before manned spaceflight. I always tease my sister about being 3 days older than space flight itself. I'm older than manned space flight. Also, if you watch cartoons, I'm older than the Flintstones. But younger than the Jetsons. But, yeah, I see a lot of what was the dream, like this. I think, just graduating high school when I did in 1978, the idea of having a device like this was just unimaginable. And now everybody's got one and they're everywhere. And it's better than the communicator that Captain Kirk used.
And the fact that you have Metropolis as your background is just...
It's my favorite movie.
To dovetail off that, of seeing just in my field with the advent of computer mapping, when originally cartographers, like, I love maps, I'm that big of a geek, I'll stare at a hand-drawn map, and the fact that it's fairly accurate that they had to do that with the tools that they had, but computer accuracy now, when we're designing those in the computer, and just when I started doing it, the technology has advanced so much that you're constantly having to take training to keep up with it, and seeing where it's going. It's getting really fast, so I look at movies and see things happening like, okay, that's really cool. I know I can do some of that stuff, maybe not as fast, but it's getting there. So I see it like starting to like go in that direction, even with doing things like a lot of times you see the especially in the sci-fi movies, you see they'll pop up a screen and an instant like 3D model will pop up in front of it, and they're referring to that now as digital twins, where you basically build a small, complete 3D version of whatever you're looking at in the computer to like model everything, so you don't have to build one in real life to see if it breaks. You break it in the computer first. All that is coming like now, so it's starting.
I think that there's a lot of technology that we don't think of, because we think of electronics so much as like the technology that we've got. But there are things that we can do that would seem impossible, like the fact that you can put a tooth in somebody's eye and it'll make them see. Actual surgery that you can do. It does not sound real in any way, but it actually, I forget the name of the procedure, but it is something that you can actually do in very rare cases.
And only if you use the eye tooth, right?
Yeah.
I was waiting.
Okay, the dad joke panel is tomorrow night.
What time?
And just like in the field of opticianry and optometry, that I've been seeing, like one of the things I've been following really closely is on-eye bionic contacts. And just everything that they'll be able to do that's going to give you a heads-up display, where you'll actually have it in front of your, like in your vision. Except that unlike the glasses, you can't see it unless you get close enough, so like people can't see that. It will actually have electronics on the front of it and a false iris. You'll be able to change the color of your eyes with the press of a button on your app. It'll also be connected to things like Google Lens, so I can be like, hey Google, what's that? And it'll know it'll eye track, and it'll be able to just pull up in front of me what I'm looking at. So
and for $20 a month, will be ad free.
I mean, if you don't think that everything that you look at is going to be beamed straight to them, and so I think, and a lot of times, there's that point of there are things that are just not possible, but at the same time, there are things that we say they aren't possible, and then our understanding of physics changes, and we go, well, maybe. Or we have those things that we go, well, I can't do that. How close can I get though? And so that's kind of the thing for science fiction. I mean, it's one of those things that's always driven a lot of innovation, because you go, that sounds really cool. Can I do it? And maybe not, but you get as close as possible.
What blurs the lines? I'm not a squishy guy, but I think, growing new organs, 3D printing organs, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're making a lot of progress in that, so we're getting closer to the point where maybe that's actually...
Yeah, that one's is going to be, are we going to grow them, or are we just going to 3D print them? It's a race.
They have 3D printers on station that are testing materials for 3D printing.
Could you imagine just like a whole like swath of skin getting printed in front of you?
That one
It would be
actually already
weird.
exists.
But if you needed the scan, you'd probably be really excited.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to watch it happening.
It's in
If you're at the
burn
point
units.
where you need the skin to be printed, you're probably not conscious.
It's
God
burn.
willing.
I mean, I don't necessarily want to be the guy that's having to run the machine to print it. You're just sitting there just.
And I'm sure the sound effect.
Yeah, it's gotta have that sound
Or
effect.
the president has to slip the guy into it, right?
It's like a car wrap, like.
Oh no, we got a paper jam.
It is 10 o'clock at night.
As
This is
an
giving me
IT person
Fifth
who has
Element
experience with
flashbacks.
printing
Yeah,
images.
Oh my God.
Welcome in.
Can you imagine if HP built the machines that
You're out of yellow toner. What are you?
We can't print your liver, we're out of
Out of cyan.
Yeah, toner prices are gonna go through the roof.
Yeah.
Already, I mean,
Do you know what the prices of melanin are?
Yeah.
Bishop?
I think I mean, my favorite fallback is always Arthur C. Clarke's third law, right? That any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And the reverse of that is that any magic is just a misunderstood science, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I've already heard you guys talk about it. It's like, well, you know, when I was in college, this was unimaginable. And it seems to me that there's nothing that the scientific community loves more than for somebody to say that's impossible. And that's when the scientists step up and say, hold my beer, I guess would probably be more accurate. But I think that for me, the line, because I technically write fantasy, but the fantasy in my books is I'm actually kind of written people like you probably hate. Because I take like what the fuzzy line is sometimes between magic and science for the average layperson, and I just kind of stretch it out a little bit and play in it a little bit. I mean, things like, you know, the double slit experiment. That, you know, the idea that just by observing something you can actually change the outcome of an experiment. I mean, and I understand we're talking about, you know, the subatomic world versus the macro world, but they just recently got superposition with, I believe it's a sapphire crystal that was on the macro level. I mean, it's still incredibly small, but it is not subatomic anymore. So, I mean, that used to be the kind of thing that was like, well, yeah, you know, superposition and entanglement, and that, well, yeah, that works in the subatomic level. Well, now we're seeing that some elements of that can exist beyond the subatomic level. So, where does the line change? And I think that because where we're at now, the way we're advanced technologically in our understanding of the universe, I'm not sure there is a line anymore between science and magic, because of things like, okay, we want to talk about teleportation. Well, we know wormholes are possible. I mean, it takes an incredible amount of energy to achieve them, but they are theoretically possible. The math works out for that. Okay, we want to throw a fireball. Well, a fireball is just excited molecules that are vibrating to a point where they cause combustion. It just takes energy to do that. So it's how you want to look at it, that it can be explained. It may not be achievable with our current technology or current understanding, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done.
So looking at all of the science fiction that's out there, what do you hope we get sometime in the near future? And we'll start with you, Bishop.
Star Trek. Definitely not Star Wars. I mean, lightsabers would be cool, but, you know, and the sad part is I think we're really so close to having the Empire.
Yeah.
You know, the rebel symbol is cool, but God, I really don't want to have to be a Cassian. I'm too old and lazy. I don't think I can do that. But, I mean, it's.
If the Force were real, I would so abuse it.
If lightsabers were real, I guarantee I'd lose a hand just by like, whoops.
I mean, I guess what I'd like to see with technology, for me, the most frustrating thing with generative AI, I'm going to use quotes around AI because it isn't AI.
It isn't AI, no.
It's not even like on the path to AI. But what bothers me about that, aside from being a creator and the fact that they're building its data set off of stuff that's stolen for people like me, the program itself I don't have any issue with, but the way it's being implemented now, and I've seen so many memes about this, is it's the reverse of what's supposed to happen. Technology is supposed to alleviate the menial tasks, the annoying stuff that we don't want to do, to free us up to do things like write music and write art and paint and do poetry and study philosophy. It's not supposed to do the art and the philosophy so that we can keep working 70-hour jobs. So that's what I want to see, is I want to see us actually apply the technology, because, I mean, you want to talk about a huge revolution. When you get to the point where, you know, machinery and technology is able to do most, if not all, of the menial works, well then how does money come into play anymore? And even if you don't technically have a post-scarcity society, you've got a really close proximity to it. And that's what I would like to see is the things we're coming up with. It's the profit aspect of it is what worries me. So I'd like to see us get to a point to where it's back to, I guess, the best for true science, rather than, you know, what's a tech bro want to put so that he can, you know, sell more dumpster shit.
Capitalistic.
Corporate science.
Yeah,
Corporate science.
yeah.
You couldn't possibly talk about the Cybertruck.
No.
I love badly rendered PS1 movies.
I drew them when I was in the 5th grade.
You're right?
So,
Like, great. So did Elon Musk.
How about some actually useful general purpose robots? I don't know, it seems like we're getting pretty close. Now granted, we have a propensity to, you know, bolt flamethrowers or machine guns on them. But then again, I also like fire explosions, so, you know, I might be the other guys who do that.
I am not 100% sure that it's real, but I've seen some I mean, it's out of China, so I've seen some footage of a possible robotics lab and some things that they're testing in China, and ooh, shit, is it creepy? Because you're like, that is way too close to looking like an actual person.
Well, the problem with that, the first question is, can I fuck it?
Those are genuine.
I mean, it's sad that that's going to be the first thing that's going to happen.
I mean,
Have you seen the one that just came out, the Chinese battle dog with the robot dog with a gun attached to it?
Yeah.
It's a Skynet hunter killer right there.
I didn't like that Black Mirror episode myself.
you know, I don't know that I can actually say that there's something that I specifically am like hoping to see that's kind of different than what, you know, these two have already said. But something I've always thought is really interesting in just a like far future kind of thing, especially with where our current society is one of my favorite I love sci horror a lot, but Dead Space. One of the things that beyond all of the crazy marker, necromorph, everything that's happening in the series, the idea of planet crackers sounds so plausible for us. Because I mean, one of the things from Dead Space is that all we found is dead space, as we are able to go out to other parts of the galaxy and everything. We don't find life. And planet crackers are these giant ships that basically use these gravity tethers along with a colony that's down on the planet itself, and they pop the cork, is what they call it. They put this huge part of the planet up, and they mine it for all the minerals that we can get. And I'm like, I hate how plausible that is for us of running out of everything, and it's all right. Well, we'll just tear other planets apart.
We'll just strip mine the hell out of it.
Exactly.
Put it out there.
And I
Or
thought it was,
asteroids. I know there's already plans.
Earth first, we'll strip mine the other ones later.
Yeah.
and it makes that game really great because like at one point you have to like restart the engines because they've been sabotaged, and the cork is pulling you back down to the earth. Like, but it was just like I hate how plausible that is.
What I'd like to see go further, and this is because Jim apparently was there, when the first blue marble picture was taken from the moon, when people actually saw like, well, the Earth is this little small ball in space. That was the start of the environmental movement. Like, ooh, maybe we should protect this. The mapping, whether it's coming from like really good satellites or drones, like the images we're getting, we actually can see environmental changes like daily now. It's like it's getting so good, and that needs to get spread out more. Like, so if one image from space people are starting to realize is like, oh, we're this little blue ball in the middle of nothing, sparked a movement. The fact that we can now like track things like almost daily.
Look where this coastline is moving to.
Yeah, the coastline's moving, the garbage patch is getting bigger, this forest is literally disappearing meters, you know. I'm hoping that sparks more of a, you know, discussion.
Conscientious.
Conscientious.
It would be good to see GIS technology become more accessible and easier to use. for
Yeah,
more
and
people
that-
to see it.
And that's one thing, it's like I teach a intro class in the evenings at the local college in Charleston, and it's like getting them to like, it's like, all right, this is how the science works, go forth and, you know,
Do good.
do good, you know?
A single, unambiguous SETI signal. Because it changes everything. Because we are at that moment, the human race will change irrevocably. Because it will mean,
I mean, half the population is gonna immediately deny it.
of course,
And, yeah.
Well, didn't they come out during COVID and say there were aliens and everybody was just kind of like, not right now?
Yeah.
No, what they said is, we have unidentified objects, we're willing to admit that they're unidentified.
yeah, that's, yeah, they didn't say, yeah, that's just it, at no point did they ever say it. But no, I mean, a really,
Unambiguous.
unambiguous, because we had a thing years ago called the wow signal.
Yeah.
And the reason it was called the wow signal is because when the person decoded it, he wrote wow
Yeah.
next to it on the page. It occurred once. And they've checked that area time and time and time again, haven't gotten another signal. Like, well, it was, a washing machine with a bad motor sparking or something. But, I mean, something akin to the message from contact, where you could somebody just turns a radio on in their house and they can hear it. And it's a mathematical signal that repeats, like say, 1 and 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, and then it starts repeating. It's prime numbers. Doesn't happen in nature. Something that just, you listen to it, okay, this has got to be a signal from an alien race. Because at that point, we stop being this little lone entity, and we become a member of a community. And I think we'll see a shift in taking responsibility for what we do. I think it'll make a big change.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We either become the Federation
Fingers
or we
crossed.
become
Fingers
the
crossed.
the Empire.
Starship Troopers.
In part of that, I don't know, from South Carolina, it was big news in our state, but the UFO Welcome Center burned down. and the guy says he has no plans on rebuilding, so it was a.
I'm convinced the wow signal was like alien Todd bumped into the stereo and he was like, turn that shit off, they're gonna hear us.
Oh, sorry, man.
There's the dark forest theory in that the reason why we've had no contact is that there's something within the galaxy or within the universe that you don't want to hear you.
Yeah.
There's a really great short story kind of like about it where it was like we were sending out all these signals, we got one back, and it took us all this time to decode it. And then the main character walks back in, there's a dude, he's just staring at the screen, he's like, I figured it out. And it was 2 words, it was be quiet. And it's like,
Actually, the message we're going to get back is when they find the Voyager or when they find the Pioneer plaque. Going, why are you sending us pictures sending us new pictures and giving us directions to your house?
We'd like to talk to you about your automobile.
I love the memes of aliens out and the satellite goes by and they're just hearing Chuck Berry for 2 seconds.
And then on SNL, when they first sent out the Voyager spacecraft, says, we received a signal from space. It is a very simple signal. Send more Chuck Berry.
So what if we do get that signal, if we do hear that, are we looking at something more like the Vulcans in the Star Trek and we, then towards the Federation, or are we looking at Starship Troopers or, mutant bacteria that kills everybody?
It'll be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, the message, don't panic.
If we've got evidence of God's sick sense of humor, yeah, that's exactly what it'll be.
I think as
It'll be
well.
Kogan poetry.
It's the kind of life that we find. I mean, we're so used to carbon-based, but are we going to find carbon-based life? What does sulfur-based life look like if it's out there?
Would we even recognize it if it's not carbon-based life?
Yeah,
are
right.
we even going to
Yeah,
recognize
this
it?
been the question is rock varnish life.
Well, there's a meme I saw that it was about aliens talking, and it was like an alien confederation, and they were just absolutely horrified that there was this life form that was made out of meat, And it was like, oh my God, they're meat, they're sentient meat. That's horrible. How do they
Well, yeah, it was a
function?
machine. Yeah, I read this story. It was
The greatest stories you can find, they're on Tumblr and all of them, but there's a whole series of short stories called Humans or Space Orcs.
Yeah.
And all the alien life forms that are out there cannot figure out humans because we have claws and teeth that are visible. We can handle a wide range of temperature extremes that we're
Basically
comfortable
breathe
with.
fire.
We can handle food, like we drink caffeine, we eat capsaicin, things that would poison everything else.
Yeah.
We can sustain injuries that would hurt everything else. So they can't figure us out. But they're like, don't mess with those. So there's all these like, just don't mess off the humans. They're,
I think my favorite story that's sort of the take on that though, because I always try to remain eternally an optimist, is the one where it's from the perspective of the aliens. And they've been watching us, and they're fearful, and they want to make sure we're staying in our own backyard, and they're watching terrified as we start exploring our own solar system and then branching further out. And it's the aliens that are on a planet, and there's a plague, and they see the human ships are coming, and they're terrified because they can't defend themselves. And the humans land, and they're all emblazoned with red crosses, and it's Doctors Without Borders, and they're saying, "How can we help?" And it's like, It's part of me is like worried about that. It's like, will it go the Zephyr Cochrane pulling out the shotgun and blowing the Vulcans away, versus the one welcoming in to go have a drink? That it's like, but I have to hold on to that optimism that it's when something comes to the best of us, we'll still somehow manage to shine through.
I see that as we shouldn't be afraid of them because look at our history.
Yeah.
We are seldom the good guys.
Yeah.
And I think that as much as the movie's super entertaining, I mean, the idea of Independence Day, where we're just like, all right, well, you sent us a weapon, so we're gonna kill you with it. Like, that is human nature.
Right.
Some of the ones that I
Don't
really
drop
like,
anything.
some of the ones that I really like out of like some of the like stories of like humans interacting. One, I like the idea that it fascinates aliens that humans will pack on with anything.
Yeah.
Because we will. I also love, there was one that I saw, and it was like humans interacting with all these other species, and like we're like one of the only apex predators that are like in the sentient species. So it's like someone asking a human, it's like, oh, so like you guys have like lions and that kind of stuff. And like, oh, we saved them because they were going extinct. And they're like, well, what's like the highest apex predator of your planet? And they're like, we are. And they're like, I am scared now.
We're Kazinti.
I think logically, and I think what might truly happen is that more of the Andromeda strain scenario is that we're going to find either it's going to crash on Earth or we're going to pick it up somewhere, but there's going to be that bacteria, virus, fungi, something that we're going to bring back that it's going to go, hey, we like this oxygen, nitrogen / rich whatever environment, and then we've already proven that we do real well with dealing with diseases and...
Well, then you gotta, I mean, that's, again, not to shoot holes in that, but it's the whole idea of if the biochemistry even matches.
Yeah.
It's like, because I mean, that's the idea. It's like if you study science, people, it's like, oh, we're going to colonize, we're going to plant all these seeds. What the hell you are? That stuff's not going to grow there. It's a completely different.
You mean you can't grow potatoes with poop and Martian soil? Actually, well, I mean, but no.
Well, it's like, as well,
you can.
we could also have fine carbon-based life forms, but like, what is carbon-based life that developed on a tidally locked planet?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Because it's, we can
Gravity
live on
shifted.
it, but it's completely different
Yeah, and as
style.
far as technological advancement, there is one thing that's very important. And fire. You can't build electronics underwater.
Good on you, Prometheus.
You have to have fire. You have to have a way of smelting metals.
Are you familiar with the great filter concept? Civilizations go through a great filter, right? So there's these events that civilizations have to go through, they're called great filters. Things like you invent nuclear weapons and you decide that you gotta get rid of them all, or, do these big events, so maybe they're alien civilizations, and once they get to interstellar travel, if that's even possible, they've gone through all their filters, and they see us and they go, now we're gonna wait a while. We're not talking to those guys yet.
Well, it's also the fact that is how far away is life. It's like life isn't necessarily close, And if they are far enough away, they're seeing dinosaurs. So they're not coming because they're like, oh no, there's just giant lizards on that planet. We don't need to go there.
Also, did you ever read the Harry Turtledove series? That was, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was set during World War II.
The World War series.
Yeah, the World War series. And we get invaded by aliens during World War II, but the aliens are very, very slow evolving. And when they were scanning us and checking us out, we were living in castles and swinging swords, and they were like, well, this is going to be easy. So they show up with jets and tanks, and they show up to Earth, and we've got radio signals and flying planes. I'm like, what the actual fuck? So, yeah.
I loved, there was one that I saw where it was like the rest of, like, when we joined like the federal, like galactic federation, that kind of thing. Everyone still had very much the we line up on this side, you line up on that side kind of warfare, make it fair. And we were like, fuck that.
Yeah.
We're just gonna nuke you. And they're like, we don't like this.
So a lot of our recent technology advancements have come as a result of billionaires that want to play in science and technology and rockets and everything else. Help us or hurt us in the long run?
I'm not averse to it, because first of all, Elon Musk is sending billions of dollars into space. No, he's not. He's spending it right here on Earth and hiring people to build this thing. I know, but people who do stuff similar to what you do.
Just 8 hours a week.
Yeah. But he's paying scientists and engineers and technicians and support people and caterers for, and to me that's the same thing with the American space program. Anytime somebody tells me, oh, well, think about how much money we send into space, we never send a dime into space. Well, unless you're Gus Grissom and you packed him into your suit illegally.
Well, and to be fair though, NASA never brought up the idea of indentured servitude to get you on a colony on Mars to help you pay for it to get your ticket.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
True. but I'd go. If it was anybody but Elon Musk.
I mean, the entrepreneurs kick it off, and then maybe the corporations get a life of their own, and they sort of go a
But
different
what
direction.
happens when the heads of those companies die? Is the next generation going to be as focused on the right things as the current ones, at least publicly, are?
I'm sorry.
So I think that sort of already happened with SpaceX.
I think what I'd like to see is sort of like a modernized version of what was popular in ancient Rome, where people who were really, really rich showed it off by doing public works.
Yeah.
You built aqueducts, you built the Colosseum, you built theaters or temples or roads, and you did it to show, that's how you showed off how much money you have. I would love to see that become popular with modern day billionaires. It's like, instead of building a giant dick-shaped rocket, that it's, let's find a way to make, getting into orbit more efficient and easier, so it's not having to burn tons of fuel to get there. To make it more practical for going to other planets, like working on the various steps. But it's that kind of thing rather than just doing it to where it's basically a dick measuring contest.
Elon Musk.
Literally with a gigantic
Elon Musk
flaming
really
dick
did
rising
say,
from
"Can I
the
fuck space?"
My problem is there's all these other things that they could do. Elon Musk, if you look back at the news things, had said, give me like a year and I can solve the Flint, Michigan water problem.
And he could.
And he could if he actually decided to, but he decided it was more fun to go build a ugly ass truck and go build rockets. So the Flint, Michigan people still have lead in their water. There's like all these other issues that they could be like, if they focused their stuff on and hired the right people, they could solve to make the planet better. Like, rockets are cool and we all think space is neat, but I'm not ever going to get to go up there, so I'd rather have.
Yeah, I was just using that as an example.
So, but like, so when the BP oil rig exploded in the Gulf of Mexico and all the thing, I think it was Dances as Wolves, Kevin Costner. He backed a small startup to come up with we've come up with this amazing thing that will go out into the ocean and clean up the oil spill. It failed spectacularly, but he tried a new technology. So at least there's all these guys that are like building rockets or trying to go down to see the Titanic and all this stuff that are like
They
spending.
keep doing that.
They get, but it's like you focused on stuff that actually would help the planet that you're living on instead of trying to leave. I think you would be doing so much better for everybody else. But I've got no use for any of them right now.
By the way, let's give the Titanic some mad props because I mean it's still 112 years later killing rich people.
Yeah,
Rich person died the first time around.
Listen, all of that money, and they bought a bootleg fucking controller. At least get the actual like Xbox or PlayStation controller. Damn.
Wired.
It works for the military. It should work for you.
A wired one, not Bluetooth compatible.
Exactly.
A wired controller.
But you don't get to be a billionaire by spending money frivolously.
A whole extra $20.
The fact that they're doing it again, though, is just beautiful.
What?
Yeah, some
Yes.
guys just
doing it.
They're proving because they don't want to lose their company. They're proving
Well, this is another
it
company that actually does make actual submersibles. We'll see how they'll have to.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
But I mean, I can tell you that you will not meet anybody cheaper, a bigger cheapskate than a rich person.
Oh, yeah.
The more money somebody has, the bigger the tightwad they're going to be. But no, what I meant with like the public works is like basically removing the profit incentive out of it. You're throwing money to solve problems, to do these great big things that are showy, and it's no longer about making money. Because I mean, Jesus Christ, when you hit $1 billion, you've won capitalism. Can we just like give you a fucking trophy and then just call it a day? I mean, seriously.
Are there any questions in the audience? Any specific technologies? Any science fiction, science fact? Yes, sir.
So you got Voyager that's all the way out there.
Yes.
Recently we've seen drones, and you do drone swarms. Have they ever thought about combining the two technology and doing drone satellite swarms and just blasting thousands of them out in different directions to do scans? Since it'd be cheaper, smaller, little technology, and just blast them.
See Dark Forest theory.
so there's a satellite array up there now called they're cube satellites, and they're not much bigger than a toaster oven. And this company, depending on the level you want to pay or sign your life away, they actually do fairly good images, and because it's a satellite array, sort of like a swarm, they actually pass over certain areas multiple times, and you can get very good imagery. So, and they're a lot cheaper to send up. I'm saying this because I've got two rocket people in here, but but they're a lot cheaper to send up and build than the giant like satellite you think of. So yes, there are that technology where they're sending up smaller, multiple satellites, and they're called cubes because they're literally not that much big. But they've got great resolution cameras, and they're digital, and they send images back directly. So that's one version of that. They just haven't gotten it out into space yet.
And they're working with solar sails so that you don't need nuclear propulsion.
Yeah.
And you could get like dozens of them. They're going to try and basically map all the planets that way.
Yeah, I think that with what happened with the Ingenuity helicopter on Mars,
Yes,
which
that's also.
that was awesome. Sending several at once,
Yeah,
I think is
that's also
something that would be in the offing.
Yeah, that was an orgasm and a half.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the problem with sending out the big swarm is communications, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to talk? How are you going to relay anything back to the people on the earth? I assume we're the ones interested in the data.
We
never
need
know.
that. We need that spooky.
So
house in
you
that
got to
business.
have something really big to talk to Earth again. They are experimenting with essentially line of sight laser communications between satellites. Does TDRS use part of that stuff now? I don't remember.
No, TDRS doesn't.
is still radio.
TDRS is right. TDRS is old.
So they're working on that kind of stuff. Solar cells are great as long as you're close to a star.
Or a really big laser.
Or a really, really big laser, which I don't know if we have the
I mean, it's-
capability
Well,
yet.
did I see an article that somebody had thought that he had figured out a way to get ion propulsion drive to actually break orbit, or break to get into orbit from the ground?
Everybody really wants that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the idea of. I really don't know how much research, if any, is going into it, but entangled particles
Mhm.
and what that can do for communication to be instantaneous in it.
Yeah, that's one of those
Yeah.
those scientific misnomers that it's because when you observe it, you break the
Yeah.
entanglement off of it. So it's like, yeah, if you send them out with like an infinite number, it's just like it's a one-time use walkie-talkie, right?
Right, right now, getting data to and from deep space to Earth is a massive bottleneck. Every single rover and whatnot we've got running on Mars, and everything we're going to have orbiting the moon have to use the same system. And
Did they put relays up in between
it,
that would help?
time and money.
Yeah.
Time and money, and so it's getting the data from wherever it is outside of the TDRS, which is low Earth orbit, is going to be a massive bottleneck in the future.
And it's also like orbital positions and that kind of
Yep.
thing.
And
It's
space
like,
junk.
how do you put them in a position that isn't just going to get moved as everything?
Yeah,
itself
the
moves?
orbital mechanics between the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and something orbiting the Moon is literally a black magic.
In other words, one and a half.
A lot of math.
It's what makes. I have a degree in physics. I'm only 27.
the looking at the launch dates for the various Artemis moon missions, they originally they wanted the shortest time to get to the moon. That actually constrained develop to the impulse versus the warp to get us to break that gravity and to use the empty space and the because if there's the vacuum of space, that whole Newton's action-reaction law can kind of bite you in the butt if you're not careful.
Well, it's also the thing that's always glossed over in the big fancier science fiction, which is one of the reasons I actually loved The Expanse, is inertia.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to go fast, but we can't go real fast to get there because we'll get squashed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's a legitimate thing that we have to worry about. It's well, like solar sails and stuff like that. That's the idea. It's like, oh, we can accelerate to get really, really fast. Yeah, but it's going to take you years to accelerate to that point if you want to survive the trip.
Oh, you use the inertial dampers.
Yeah, universal dampers.
How does it work? Very well.
Yeah.
It's
The same way that artificial gravity works.
I've always,
Heisenberg compensators.
That's tomorrow's panel.
it's a weird tangent, but like this is the same reason why like when we get asked the question like what superpower would you choose? So I always say that you want to teleport and not fly. Because like I would love to fly, and I'm like, yeah, until you hit Mach 3 and your skin sloughs off. Like,
And then you have to slow down without hitting anything.
and I'm like, yeah, you're not thinking about the mechanics of actually yourself flying with nothing in front
that
of you.
whole Newton, all of Newton's
Grain
crap
of
from
sand.
back in the day,
It's
just
like Superman can do
Or
this.
a bug hits your
Superman.
face.
Superman. To hit him in the building, it's fine.
People that ride a motorcycle because they don't want to ever learn to fly.
Exactly.
Smack them
How
before
fast
it
did
does
you go before it became, the friction with the air molecules became an issue?
I mean, have you ever
That would be a question for the physicist. I mean,
have you ever been in a convertible at 70 miles an hour? It kind of hurts. You
Ever
know?
ride a motorcycle and get hit by a June bug?
yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, she was saying how fast do you need to go before friction would actually
Before
become a
friction
problem.
with the air molecules and your skin would start to create.
I know the SR-71 grows 4 feet in length because
Yeah.
of the heat when it flies.
Yeah, it's designed to expand when it heats
Over
up.
Mach 3.
Yeah, well, officially, or at least publicly.
Probably about supersonic.
Yeah.
I think when you start getting around in there, you're
Yeah.
gonna experience a lot of weird things. But
Yeah, you're gonna hit that boom and you're gonna boom.
Well, I know that a body falling terminal velocity is 600 miles per hour. So that's,
I don't think it becomes terminal at that. It becomes terminal faster than that.
well, I
You
mean,
only die half.
The fall isn't really terminal. It's that at the end. It's
the landing.
The actual terminal velocity is 0 miles an
It's an
hour.
hour, you know.
you know what I mean? But terminal
600
velocity is
zero.
the fastest you will fall before.
9.8 meters per second squared. Yeah, we get up.
Yeah.
Another quick question, I know you mentioned that breaking gravity is the big thing. How far off are we from building the rockets in space or on the moon? So we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Space is hard.
So I'm sure NASA has thought about it, has
I mean,
plans
the
50 years
reason,
out, 100 years
right,
out.
the reason we are going back to the moon is to build the technology to get us to Mars. So the past 20 plus years, we've had a permanent presence in low Earth orbit. There are kids graduating college who were born in a time where not all of humanity lived physically on the Earth. There was people in space for the last 23 years. That's a massive accomplishment. The next step is to do something hopefully similar on the moon. We're going to send our people out there for 30 days at a time to be in Lunar Gateway. We're going to build a surface hab. We're going to try to live and work on the moon. We're going to look at the technology to build the engines and the motors and look at the resources that are on the moon to build those things to get us to Mars.
Yeah, there is research going on about how to synthesize fuel in place. So you can refuel.
That's the hard part. You gotta set all the parts up without something with reaction mass. Right?
Yeah.
You might have water too, right?
I mean, it's
And well, yeah, there's
Water's fairly heavy.
water, yes. Getting the crew to the moon is relatively simple. Keeping them alive for the entire trip is the hard part. You have to,
It's always the fine print.
yeah, space is always looking for a reason to kill you.
Mother Earth is in
It's-
that
it's also-
Well, no, but I mean, at least here you can breathe the air most of the time. But I mean, yeah,
On the moon, you can
getting
breathe the air for the rest of your life.
the water, the food, the clothes, all of the stuff to support four crew members to the moon and back. That weighs a lot.
And it's, one of the things that I've always worried about outside of like NASA and that kind of thing is capitalism getting to the moon, starting to mine shit, and fucking up our tides because suddenly there's not enough material on the moon to do it right.
Right,
You have to hollow that out.
Don't you know the moon is a giant egg?
But the reality of it,
Did you
the
see
moon
moon?
wasn't there.
Did you see Moonfall? It's just hollow.
Okay, that's tomorrow's panel. Tomorrow's panel.
So to answer to your question, one of the many careers I had, I worked for a NASA space grant office at the College of Charleston, and so I got to take a bunch of honest-to-God engineering students to Huntsville's station because they wanted to actually learn stuff. And so I'm sitting in a room, and it was this giant 3D projection thing where they're walking around and looking at the new design of one of the ships, and the engineering students are eating it up, and it's way over my head. I'm going, okay, this is cool, but I don't understand it. So the guys are asking this big Q&A session, and the students are asking everything on the planet. And finally, I was like, okay, I have to ask. I raised my hand and I said, sir, it's this is really cool, but I grew up during the time of the space shuttle, and to me, that's a really iconic looking spaceship. And this has gone back to almost the
capsule.
The
It's a
capsule.
capsule.
It's a capsule shape. I said, was there any thought at all to making it look cool? and he looked at me and he goes, the minute I can build it in space, I'll make it look in any way you want. And I was like, okay, so they're already thinking about, the next
that whole aerodynamics and physics thing.
Yeah, that's
again, that's getting
it out of the atmosphere. So.
Just all the amount of people looking at the board being like, God, I wish it didn't look like shit.
Well, better, I mean, like you said, flying dick,
Well, and it's logistics too, because I remember reading about how on the moon, one of the big surprises they got when they first landed was how abrasive the dust
Yes,
is.
that is a
Jagged.
massive.
That it cuts through the suits because
Dust-
since there's no erosion,
Yeah.
there's nothing to smooth the edges off. So
Dust
it's sharp.
mitigation is a massive concern because we've only got the stories and the reports from Apollo to tell us, and where Apollo landed is not where we're going to land now, and this next time, and so we don't really know for sure what it's going to be like, and they're trying to come up with these calculations on when the crew goes outside, they're going to come back with X amount of dust on them that we've got to get filtered out that doesn't destroy the systems. It's, dust
Because
is...
they
It's
almost
sad
didn't make
that
it
we
back,
still know
right?
about
Because
our own
it
satellite.
locked the joints
well,
of
it
the
locked
suit.
the joints and it clogged the filters, and I mean,
Think
there's
of how little we
pictures.
know about our emotions.
Oh, well, yeah.
So-
They're really deep, though.
As compared to the proximity of the
Okay, this one is for you specifically because of Artemis. The Toyota Lunar Cruiser that they're building.
The what?
Joe, are you serious? I am serious. Toyota is working with the Japanese government to create a cruiser so that they can go from place to place on the moon I'm just thinking RVing on the moon?
Your Toyota thought that
So there are two different rover programs.
Right. One
There's
is
the lunar rover, which is basically what the Apollo missions had, the little go-kart on the moon. The pressurized rover is basically planned to be a mini RV. There will be a pressurized component to where the crew can be unsuited inside safely, and the thing will drive around to various sites, because there's a lot of places we want to go that you just can't get there and back in the amount of time that your suit can support life.
right.
Sure hope they spring for the limited package.
There,
4-wheel drive at least.
Serious satellite.
Well, they're still building the requirements and putting out RFPs for those. I don't know where they are in the. We've picked vendors, we've picked contracts.
In case you don't know, an RFP is a request for proposal.
Yeah, sorry, I get into my alphabet.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering about the geology that we know about the moon, with the possibility of, the oxygen production and from the rocks, and how many heavy metals are available to, do any metallurgy, or if it's just rhyolite.
The geology of the moon is actually really fascinating. I work directly with the people that are going to get the samples and have all these, and the way the moon was formed billions of years ago, it actually is a time capsule of what the Earth was, and so they're hoping to find the building blocks for life and compare it to what we've seen on Mars and what we see on Earth, because Earth goes through so much change with erosion and wind and water and everything. There's a lot of the prehistoric record lost. And so the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has done a really good job of mapping. And so they think they found pockets that are permanently shaded that might have ice crystals and water repositories and other types of cool things that can give us a lot of history about our own planet's development, which can help us look for those aliens that we want to find that we hope are nice.
Well, looking at, depending on whether it was the moon was formed by hitting the Earth and the, whole cloud hitting, is it ever, I guess, big enough to have any kind of molten interior or?
No, well,
It did briefly.
it
as
did
formed.
briefly when it formed. Basically, something hit the Earth and it knocked off a big chunk that became the moon.
Yeah.
And it really stunted the development of the Earth in some respects, because the Earth and the Mars were actually kind of level, and then the moon formed, and then Mars went dead, and then life flourished on Earth. So that was a really...
Is that a temperature thing, or is that a rotational thing, or is that?
That's a geologist question. Sorry, my Lunar 101 class was 2 hours long, so.
It was a combination of things. It was both temperature and it was water coming down and the environment establishing, and the oxygenation in the water, so that the oceans went from green to blue and all that. Yeah, it's a whole process.
Yeah.
But part of the reason that Mars lost its atmosphere is whenever anybody talks about terraforming Mars, it's like Mars had its shot and it blew it. Because Mars is small, it cooled quickly.
Yeah.
And without a molten core, you don't have a magnetosphere. You don't have a magnetosphere, you got solar wind blasting your atmosphere away. That's what saved Earth, is our magnetic field. So next time you see those auroras, say thank you.
And so, you talked about the moon, like why the satellite and everything. A great representation of that actually just got Duke fined a whole bunch of money because they tried to put a power line underneath the wetlands and collapsed the whole goddamn thing. And yeah, they destroyed an entire ecosystem that way. It's kind of the same thing where it's like, because it collapsed and the way that all of the silt and everything settled and everything, all the things could not breathe anymore because all this is being kicked up, and it destroyed this entire wetland.
Where was that?
A couple years ago. They also have destroyed several bald eagle habitats too. Duke is great.
Well, and on that lovely note, it is almost 11, so thank you guys very much. And if we'll start down there with Bishop, do a real quick wherever you're going to be the rest of this weekend, where can find you.
Everybody pulls out their schedule.
I am still Bishop O'Connell. You can find me online. My blog is at quietpint.com, because high schools in the Catholic Church beat me to the Bishop O'Connell domain name. tomorrow, I will have 2 panels tomorrow. One at 5:30, motion picture, which I guess is more like a game that's like improv. And then at 9:30, I'm doing creating characters with agency. And on Sunday at 9:30 a.m., I've got a panel for self-publication versus small press versus big press. And in the meantime, you can find all my books at the Falstaff table out there, and I will be wandering around, and you can grab me and ask me questions if you like. Just grab me gently if you're not going to buy me dinner.
Brandon Whitworth, tomorrow at 4:30, I'll be doing Southern Edgar Allan Poe readings, apparently. I volunteered for it, and then I got picked. I don't know what happened. At 6 o'clock, we're going to do Geek Debate, and I still say the greatest panel to come in will be at whatever time that's going to happen. 9 o'clock, Geeky Dad Jokes.
And he's been test driving them for a month. Just so you
Is
know.
that 9 a.m. or p.m.?
PM.
Oh,
And I'm also in a band full of nerds. We do nerd rock, Flipbound Force. You can find some flipboundforce.com.
Yes.
Flipboundforce.bandcamp.com.
I'm Alex Gideon. I have a table right out here. It's against that wall, all the way at the end next to the Falstaff Mothership. Have all of my books available. Please come buy them. I like to eat. For the rest of the weekend, tomorrow I'll be out on Steal from the Best at 3:30. I should be moderating that one. And then Sunday at 11, I have The Importance of Characters' Backstory.
I'm Charlie Kaufman. You can find me on Facebook under Kaiju Mapping, which when I talk about all my infamous disaster talks and post funny science articles, I can find it. I don't actually sell anything, but if anybody wants to give me $1, I won't say no. Tomorrow at 5:30, I'm actually moderating Motion Pictionary, which will be exciting because I have no idea what it's about either. And at 9:30, I'm on the Is That Even Possible panel that we keep alluding to, talking about
That's tomorrow's panel, yeah.
tomorrow's panel that if we talk about can things actually happen in science fiction movies. So
Well, my 3 panels tomorrow are in this room at 9:30, where we're doing the Trials and Tribulations of AI. 12:30 STEM for Kids, and 9:30 Is That Even Possible? And then on Sunday, I don't know how I wound up on this one, but I get to be on the panel with a guy who's written 17 books on Dune. I get to be in the Dune panel. Dune Through the Years, 40 plus years of flowing spice. I've read the book. I've seen the movies, but I'm going to be on that one.
Listen, that's how I felt on this panel all damn night.
Done well.
Hey man, I make shit up.
So do the rest of us. I am also on the 12:30 STEM for Kids panel and the 9 or 9:30 Is That Even Possible tomorrow. Those are my last 2 panels. I'll be wandering around. If you guys have questions, stop me, feel free. I love to talk about my job because most of the time it is really cool. And where we live, we're just one of thousands of rocket scientists, so nobody really cares.
We may have a mutual acquaintance.
It's
I
great.
bet your siblings hate you.
I have one sibling and he doesn't get me.
No. Well, no, I mean because you're rocket scientists. That's
Yeah.
When I went to the Nebulas one year, the keynote speaker was an astronaut who was also a medical doctor. It's like, dude, your brothers and sisters like, just fuck you, all right? We're not coming to Thanksgiving when you show up.
Was that Story Musgrave?
No.
Oh, it's not the
Well,
only one.
several of them have medical. Several of them think highly of themselves.
What?
Never. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your conference.